At a dinner with a vice minister of culture recently, we were talking about Chinese history. And I said, so what do your parents teach? And they said, Chinese history. And I said, what era? He said, anything before 1849. So clearly, for those of you who are students of Chinese history, you would know that for the last 150 years, it hasn't been a very stable or normal time in China. And so we've gone through 100 years of relatively tumultuous time. Now, it's important to characterize and put into a framework of what's exactly happened in the last 100 years alone. We've gone through 4 major ideological changes, from the ending of the dynastic era in 1919 to the formation of the Republic of the People of China, to then the formation of the People's Republic of China, and then about 30 years ago, now today, capitalism a la communist style, as we know it. Why is this important? Well, what is important about this is that what you have is really a concentration and a collapse of some very, very divergent and different values in a very, very short period of time, and many of them are often living still in the same household. Just until a couple of years ago, my wife's great-grandmother was living in the same family household as we were, and they have very, very different values, habits, and so forth. So, in a way, we've gone from an era where revolution was glorious just about 30, 40 years ago, to now getting rich is glorious. We've gone from buying a whole lot of flying pigeon bicycles to now being the second largest market for Ferraris and flying horses in China. And China today, in fact, sells more Ferrari, only second to the United States. So on the surface, if you're an outsider looking in, there appears to be a lot of contradiction. Well, is it really a contradiction, or is it a sense of duality? We don't think it's really a white cat or a black cat, but in fact, it may be a white cat and a black cat. So if we look and examine a little bit more deeply about the last 30 years, we have seen some major fundamental changes in the 4 areas of politics, economy, livelihood, and most recently, nationalism post the Olympics. So in the 70s, it was all about wei renmin fu wu. So, back then, if you had the 3 big purchases at the time was if you had a sewing machine, a watch, and a bicycle, you made it. In the 80s, of course, the big purchases were around white goods. So if you had your refrigerator, your washing machine, and your color television set, you had made it. Today, of course, China has become the second world's largest economy. Our GDP last year in absolute term was about 63 trillion renminbi, and growing relatively healthy. So we're here to talk about the post-80s. The八零后is the focus for today. They are bold and they're self-oriented. They're here to win. There are many, many icons and symbolism in different sectors of economy, from sciences, politics, sports, and culture. Now, I changed the number this morning, Clayton. I should have amended my number. I should have kept my original 480, which was the right number. And there are a lot of them. Their view of the world is very, very different from the one that we're used to. They're forward-looking, they're strivers. They grew up with both parents working and often raised by their grandparents. The Gang of 4 for them is a thing of the past. The Cultural Revolution, in fact, is much more of an art movement. So what we observe amongst millennials today is that that's what we call a Confucian conflict. So on the one hand, they are very traditional. They believe in harmony, respect, humility, giving face. But on the other hand, there's a bit of ego. There's a bit of show, irreverence, and pride. During the production of a show called 我型我秀 from 2004 and 2008, we had 150,000 young people audition for this reality TV show. And in the production of this, we saw a whole lot of self-expression. We saw a whole lot of coming out. And we saw and believe that what is happening in China today is there's actually a cultural renaissance that's happening. And so the Confucian conflict is very, very real amongst the millennials in China today. So my key expression number 1 is what we would coin modernity inspired by tradition. So probably what we're seeing is that the millennials of China today are looking forward, but at the same time, they're very, very much basing their expression, their values on core tradition. They haven't completely abandoned the past, nor have they completely swung to be westernized. They're somewhere in the middle, and we would coin them to be modern Chinese. Let's go to key expression number 2. Well, up until recently, we've had a one-child policy. I argue that this is probably one of the loneliest generations in the world. Now, loneliness is big business. A number of companies have gone IPO in the US on the back of playing off of this, connecting people. You know what they are and you know who those companies are. This is a photograph taken by Xinhua Agency of a job fair in Wuhan. There are also pain points. Many of the millennials in China today are going to struggle to find the right job professionally. They're going to struggle to find the right partner, as it was demonstrated by Clayton. And also, they're going to be struggling to meet the social demands and pressures of just growing up. So in a way, where do they look? They look to technology, and that has become sort of a comfort food for them. They cherish the friends and family and the bonds that they have. A 19-year-old in Chongqing told us that it is a shame to be without friends. A 21-year-old in Beijing told us that their biggest dream, or her biggest dream, is to buy a big house for her parents. Interestingly enough, more than half of the friends of millennials in China are virtual. In fact, this is an over-index compared to the rest of the developed world. So we are the most connected generation in the world today. These statistics are widely published and broadcast, so I don't want to dwell on them, but there are a lot of mobile subscribers, there are a lot of internet users, and they spend almost 25 hours a week online, much, much more so than any other medium that I have worked with in the past. What do? A lot of time is spent on instant messaging, so about 85%. It is now their primary source of news. They do a lot of search, and of course they surf for music and videos constantly. Shopping has become a way of life. The millennials over-index in what they buy and where they buy. So if you follow it, the latest trend is to go to social shopping, where they look for daren to be the influencers, the key opinion leaders. And so there are a lot of shoppers, and they spend a lot of money. Approximately 12% of China's GMV, total retail GMV today, is bought online. And not only is it being bought online, but about 50% of it is being shopped on mobile. So if you speak to a typical real estate developer or mall operator in China today, what they're telling you is consumers are coming into the stores, they look at everything, try on what they like, and then they will take a picture of it, or they'll search it on their mobile phone, order it on a website, or in some instances, go to a search engine and look for the best price, and then it gets home the next morning by the time they get home, and they don't have to carry the goods. That's why retail sales at traditional stores are really falling. But meanwhile, e-commerce sales are growing by leaps and bounds. So their shopping habits are very, very different. Now, in the past, that consumption habit was much more related to things like consumer, fashion, consumer electronics. But now we're looking at services like Wuba Daojia, for example, where they're willing to do so and pick up your laundry every week, and you can do so on e-commerce and with a mobile app. So, key expression number 2. We believe that in the millennials, what we're observing is very much a sense of fantasy connecting reality. Third expression. Luckily, unfortunately, we're also seeing a growing concern for caring for the environment and the people. A quarter of our country is already desertified, and we've lost 3/4 of our forest. Given the various smog and pollution and food safety issues that we have around the country, the people are demanding action. And this is particularly so as we observe it amongst the millennials. The government, therefore, is over-investing and investing billions to get this right. At a recent study that we did recently, 67% of the young people will make a purchase decision on a brand based on their CSR cause. This is significant. This is now parallel to that of a developed world. Prior to many of these crises, the Chinese consumer really didn't pay much attention to what a brand or company stood for. So what we're seeing is that young people are starting to care, and they're willing to do so by voting with their dollars. Therefore, finally, key expression number 3, we believe that green is the new red. Thank you very much. I look forward to sharing more in the Q&A session.